Guys, welcome to Inside the Circle T with Scotty Cameron. I have one of the greats here with me today, and a friend for years, but one of the greatest putters I've ever known. Modern day golfer, modern day putter, but I've learned so much from him over the years. Brad Faxon. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Scotty, great to be with you as always, and certainly I agree with a lot of things you say, but I've definitely learned more from you than you've learned from me. I know we go back into the early to mid 90s, and I don't know if I'm a modern day golfer anymore. I'm almost 60 years old, but I'm great to be on the show. I saw what you did with Justin Thomas, with Drew Page. That was fun.
Yeah, so, you know, this world's gonna change. And the social media thing and coming, you know, the Cameron guys and the Cameron collectors, and we had found Justin Thomas kind of set this, and they love to see him talk about and have passion about his first Cameron putter and the Cameron putter now, and just because, you know, we're all crazy, but when we see other people love this stuff as much as we do, it makes them feel it's okay.
It's really okay, and I mean, when you first came to Titleist, I'm thinking mid 90s, 95-ish.
Right on track, 94 September.
Okay, so you had been making some putters on your own, and then you did it a year with Mizuno, and you were doing some of the gunmetal putters that were fashionable by TP Mills, and who else? Tad Moore, right? So I went to college in South Carolina at Furman in Greenville, where Tad Moore was, and I really didn't know much about those gunmetal putters except for I knew what a TP Mills was, and Dunlop's or Maxfly's offices was there, and this is the first time I'd seen really a gunmetal putter. And then about the time you came to Titleist, these are the first putters that I saw with your name on them, but funny enough, you're not Scotty on these, are you?
No, so how that is, Brad. Scott, those are handmade. That is taking the mill and working the mill and going left to right, right to left, front to back. And those took hours and hours. So I made you that, I'm gonna say in 95, 94, SCM is Scotty Cameron milled there. And that little ferrule, boy, those are really cool. Look at the snow on the back flange.
I love the snow on that.
So I remember you were playing with David Frost in San Diego. I'm on the side of the putting green praying that somebody would come over and talk to me. You came over and talked to me and said you had played with David Frost, you loved his putter, would I make you one? And so Scott Cameron when it was handmade, Scotty Cameron when it is CNC made for computer numerical controlled. And I had a distributor in Hawaii for Japan, and when I put a Scott Cameron on a CNC putter, he says, no, we got to tell the difference between when you make them from hand and the computer moves the machine. So Scott Cameron is a handmade, Scotty Cameron handcrafted, but a machine runs the mill.
Okay, so let me ask you this: when you look at the two different etchings there of your name, the stampings.
Yes.
You have the Scott on the SCM looks like it's a little bit more dancing Cameron than the other one. Did you change that intentionally?
Brad, you're right on track. Once I started stamping putters by hand, they were kind of always crooked. But the longer I did it, the more I learned little tricks, like putting a piece of tape and using that as a level, like that one there, so I could actually line it up better and get it more square. So it all depends on the mood I'm in or the product or the friend I'm making it for. If they're fun and crazy, I'll do something dancing with snow. But if they're more serious, like a David Graham, who's still a wonderful friend, you know, older crowd, but he liked it a little more serious, not so fun. So you're a friend and kind of crazy and wild, so I would dance a lot of your stuff and put snow. And it really was all the mood I was in at the time when I got to that point of stamping the putter.
And even today's grip with Dancing Cameron is more like the fun old way you hand stamped your putter.
Yes, yeah, no doubt about that. It was just more fun and exciting, and Again, I like that still, but we kind of go more commercial, more proper. So it all depends on the mood. If I'm, feeling fun and crazy, I go one way, but if it's more corporate, proper, I'll go straight. And again, on a font, there's no right, there's no wrong. It's all part of the hand craftsmanship that we can put in to make each putter different.
Awesome. So I've taken a few different putters out of my bag, and I found this one. I've had this in my rack forever, Scotty. This is the first one that you milled for me to try and get some idea of what you could do to what I could make. Now, this thing's been around for a long time. I never used this in competition, but what I think is amazing about it is how close it looks to what I...
Was that super heavy?
It was very heavy, yes.
I remember that was one of the first reactions because I worked hard to get that shape, and I remember your first reaction was, man, it's quite heavy.
And I think what you did to make it lighter as we went on was we thinned out the top line. I think we thinned out the width of the putter, or the depth of the putter, and you had a little cavity in there. And we did stuff like experiment with feels and sounds. We cut a hole or a line in the bottom of the putter on some of the later generations.
Yeah, to change the sound and feel.
Definitely, because as well as anybody how players are so sensitive to feel. And now this is the gamer, where you stamp the G in there right on the heel side of the shaft.
For a gamer.
For a gamer. And I've got a B1 and a B2. And this is the one I've used since probably 1997, Scotty. Just that little dash up there.
There's something cool about it. It's kind of rusty. It reminds me of like Ralph Lauren rustic leather furniture. The older it gets, the cooler it looks.
Well, I certainly think so. I remember one time I came in and even the line is kind of more of a cream instead of a white. And I don't know if you did it or if Paul did it, but the line was kind of losing some of the paint, and somebody put white in it, and it kind of got me nervous because it stuck out a little bit. I like this more subdued look of this line. But it takes a while to learn somebody's idiosyncrasies too, doesn't it?
It does, and that line on top, Brad, if it's too thin, it looks frail and dainty, but if it gets too wide, it looks like a trench. So the thickness of the line, but you're right, we have bright white, which I'm not a fan of because it's just so commercial and bright, but your putter was kind of rusty and brown, so we put in, we call it dirty white, and it kind of matches the theme of the rusty, rustic head. You put a bright white in there and it kind of goes in a different direction. So all the attention to detail, it's those little things that make the big differences to greats like yourself.
Especially when you look at the back here where some of the paint is not quite perfect. I just think it makes it more personal. And so when I first came to see your first studio, which was like a garage, I remember it could be really cold, it could be really warm. Sometimes the breaks were different based on the temperature. That's when I first started to learn that you were a massive collector of some really cool items. Surfboards, Volkswagen minivans, nice watches, bicycles, and even cars. And you said you've gotten inspiration from so many of these things that are outside in our world when you're building your putter.
Yeah, I do, and it's a feel. It's a feel. I like fast, new age cars, but I also like classic, elegant cars. And I get so much inspiration, and it comes down to what do I feel when I drive that, or I don't even have to drive that car if it sits in my garage. It just makes me feel good. Yeah, so I don't call myself a collector, Brad. I just call myself more of a lover. I just like things that inspire me to create feel. That sounds strange, but whether it's new or old, or we were talking earlier about Mexico, I love anything Mexican. My father used to take me to Tijuana from Orange County, and it was about an hour-and-a-half drive. And just the memories of tacos and leather goods And I'm looking up above your head there at a Mexican serape bag. And I thought that bag would bomb in the marketplace, so I made a small number of those, and the whole idea was, instead of just a normal blue or black or red bag, I wanted to wrap things like go to Vegas and cut off the top of the gambling blackjack table and wrap the bag, so have a gambler theme. Go to Mexico, serape theme. And it was very colorful and very festive, but you know, I'm 40 miles here from Mexico. And I thought nobody was going to get it, my love for Mexico. And it was one of the most collectible bags we ever made, was a Serape 1 and 2 bag. And I'm glad to see that you have one, because one of my favorites.
Well, Scotty, I think you either created or exacerbated jealousy, because every time I get somebody in my little garage workshop here, they see some of the new styles, and I don't know, can you see the camo one up there in the top left?
Yes.
So my brother-in-law is in the textile business, and he builds makes the fatigues for the U.S. Army. And when he first saw that, he goes, "I gotta have that bag." I said, "No way, you're not stealing that golf bag." But
Brad, I have questions here, but I want to ask you the question. One of my questions is your grip. That grip is smaller than the average today, but what do you think when it comes to a grip to enhance or hurt the feel or look of a putter? What's your thoughts on the grip?
okay, so this is got 2 wraps of tape underneath it, so it's, in today's standard, is a very narrow grip, isn't it?
It is. It is.
I've always been a player that liked to feel like my fingers, like if I stand up here, all my fingers are touching the shaft, and the only finger that's not on the shaft is my top index finger. And I love to feel that the thumb pads of each of my thumbs were on the top of the shaft. It's interesting, I'm doing a chapter on Arnold Palmer's putting, and he had an instructor named George Lowe, who, you know the name George Lowe because not only was a putting instructor and a little shark on the greens, he designed putters, and famously Jack Nicklaus's putter. But he said if you had a pocket full of coins and you reached your hand in and you were going to get a coin out, you'd pick it up between your thumb and your index finger, and it would rest against the thumb pad, the bottom knuckle, and you'd hold on to it with those 2 fingers. I've always felt that was really sensitive, and that's when I look at somebody's grip. I like to feel like they're really part of the feel in holding on to the club and to the putter particularly. But as the putter sizes have evolved, and as you've seen more blade styles become more mallets, it's just natural to me that everything else gets a little bigger to go with that. Scotty, when we were in Orlando and we did the presentation for Titleist to open up the show, that was a great audience, great, I thought, content. And one of the stories you told that I had never heard, because you were telling me you get your inspiration from so many different objects. And you said you walked into maybe a hardware store or Home Depot, and you were getting a hammer, or you picked up a hammer somewhere, and I see the end of the grip here, but you said something inspired you when you picked up that hammer to make a grip.
Yeah, we were opening the new gallery in Encinitas, and I needed to get a great toolbox, and so I'm picking out the tools that I like and filling it in the gallery so they could work on putters, re-grip and cut shafts, and just filling up the toolbox. And I was buying a hammer, and I had noticed that quite a few of the hammers had this big pistol grip on it, big pistol. And not that say that grips haven't been done like that in the past, but it hadn't been for many of years of a pistol style grip. And you're right, some of those Odie Chrismans and some of the old classics did have a pistol grip. But I wanted to go crazy on it, so I made it extra pistol. I'm walking around, I think it was like 8:30 at night, picking out tools, and I'm walking around with this hammer in my hand and acting like it's a putter. I can only imagine security looking at the cameras thinking, what is this whack job doing, stroking a putter, a hammer like a putter? But anyhow, I bought that hammer and took it back and tried to mimic that in a putter grip, which we call the pistolero.
So I've got a hammer that has a little bit of a pistol grip, and I put my hands in here. I want to do that too. That feels pretty good. And here's a putter that you did a little work in your shop for me. This is a beautiful putter right here, and very simple.
That looks like a classic one.
Yeah, blacked out.
Carbon steel. That's cool.
You got your pistolero grip here, right?
It is the red grip, Brad. I wanted color, and remember as a kid at school, and you had played dodgeball or handball, and you had that red rubber ball.
Yep.
That's where the idea came from for that red rubber grip. Is, you know, when you were a kid playing dodgeball or handball or kickball or beanball,
Yes.
it's just that look of a good memory of growing up, and that red was a faded pinkish red. And for years, you know, Davis Love used that grip for the first time, and people kept on calling and calling, so we finally made it available on a production putter, the rubber red grip. This is from TCC Chris. Your funniest moments with Scotty and or Paul at the putter studio.
I was thinking about that. I saw this question, and this made me sound like I'm talking about myself too much, but I think the first time when I came down there and, you know, we were putting in the old studio and the carpet would change basically during the day as the temperature warmed up, and we were just getting to know each other, and you didn't have your full team there. It was you and maybe Paul, and I was starting to make an extraordinary amount of putts in a row that got in the hole, and I only think that maybe 9 balls would fit in the hole at a time. Something like that. It wasn't a lot.
Correct. So it was above the ground. I couldn't even afford at that point early on. It was more of a test to see the cameras and the carpet that was down. But I didn't drill a hole. We had this plastic disc, and I believe you're right on track. It would fit 9 holes, 9 balls in the hole. And you know, most you could fit 6. But in order to get 9, you actually, because you'd hit it and it'd bounce out, it was a low lip deal. I remember the day, so go ahead with the story. I remember this.
I just remember, like, you two were kind of whispering. I could tell you were like getting impressed, and as they were getting closer, and that you both made some comment like, well, there's no way that this next putt can go in because there's no room. And the putt was wiggling down there, and it got very end, and it just kind of kissed one of the balls and nestled right up there. And I think that was the first time I've seen and heard silence from you.
Well, I think before you hit that putt, I think I said, it can't be done. And you said something like, watch me. And if it was a little too quick, it would bounce off and go off. But you hit it at the exact perfect speed, and the brake put it into this little blank area at the front right of the hole. I remember the day it went right in, and kind of got weak knees, like we had never seen that before, didn't even think it was possible, and you gave it it's nothing, and the perfect speed. I remember that we're going back, my goodness, 25 years.
Yep.
Good times. Good times.
Shaking my head at both of you guys. That was a pretty funny moment for me to see you guys speechless, because was the first time I'd seen you speechless, and probably the last time.
Brad, I have, as you sit there, there's a Hogan book, and I'm sure you've read them because you read them all, about putting, about golf. And on the cover, there's a picture of his hands. Grip a putter from the normal side and pick it up this way. because some golfers look like their hands were born with a putter in them, and yours, when I see you grip a putter, it looks like a putter grew into your hands. It just fits. So pick up the head to the, now bring it down halfway. Look at the knuckles. Look at the trigger finger on your right is there. There's a gap in between there that's unusual. Yes, yeah, and that's all feel. That's all feel.
I think that's all feel, and I'm biased today. When I look at somebody hold on to the putter, that they have a good grip. Ben Crenshaw was a player I loved to watch how his hands, and that photograph or that sketch of Ben Hogan was done by Anthony Ravelli, who did all the drawings in the book. And Ben Hogan's grip was just flawless to look at. And there weren't many players that held on to a club as well as Ben Hogan did. And I would say Arnold Palmer might have had the most memorable handshake I've ever had in my life, where it was like you were holding on to something that was more than human, right? It was
like a bear claw.
It was a bear's claw. It was like bronzed. It had calluses, but he held a golf club like you wanted to hold on to it. But when I like to look at somebody's grip, it's always kind of cool to see somebody that really holds on to the putter the right way.
Yes, and it's tough to get that good-looking grip where it looks so comfortable. When you have this jumbo grip, it's just isn't the same. Not to say that it doesn't work, but there's just something elegant about a grip where it looks like it was born with a putter in the hands.